Hello and welcome to this course on programming using Python from Electronics and ICT Academy at Indian Institute of Technology Kanpur. I am Ameya Karkare, an associate professor at the Computer Science and Engineering Department of IIT Kanpur. To get to know more about me, you can refer to my website, which is given here. Before we start the course, I would like to acknowledge the help I have taken from various websites and PowerPoint clip arts. I have made sure that all the copyright have been acknowledged and they remain with the original creator. But in case if you suspect a copyright violation, bring it to my notice and I will remove that image or content. In this course, we will learn the following. This course teaches you how to solve problems using computer. We do not expect any prior exposure to programming. So before we start, let's take a step back and think what is a computer. Few years back, whenever someone said a computer, the typical image which came to our mind was either a desktop or a laptop. But things have changed. Today, a mobile is a computer. It has a processing element in it. You can think about any aircraft or spacecrafts or other devices like a car which contains a microprocessor. Your washing machine is controlled by a microprocessor. A microwave is controlled by a microprocessor and can be programmed. And these days, watches like Apple Watch or Fitbit like watches and even glasses. An example is Google Glass. So everything contains a computer in it. So in loose terms, all these elements can do computing or they can be programmed. So almost all electronic gadgets today are computers and these are everywhere in our day-to-day life. So the question is, why should I do this course? As we saw, computers are everywhere. So we need to understand how computers work. We need to write programs to make computers do tasks for us. In particular, we have to understand how we can use computers to perform automated repetitive tasks for us. So let's understand the process of programming. Most people think that a process of programming is that whenever you are given a problem description, you just go ahead and write solution code for it. However, this is a wrong approach. Whenever a program is given, we should first create a model of the problem, which means we have to understand the requirements to solve this problem. And this requires taking inputs from the user, understanding the scenarios under which a problem has to be solved, the constraints which are there, and so on. Once this model is understood, you have to create a logical solution. So when I say a logical solution, it is independent of any programming language. So you have to solve a problem without worrying about how to represent it to the computer or how to present it to the computer. And the last step after you have obtained the solution is to encode in a programming language to make sure that computer understands it. When you see a good programmer writing code immediately after seeing the problem description, then he is really doing all three steps mentally and then writing the code, which looks like as if he is directly solving the problem. So with experience, these three stages of programming get merged and the separation gets blurred. So let's look at these steps in more detail. The first step is to define and model the problem. In real life, this is very, very important. But at the same time, this is one of the complicated steps. For example, suppose you are given the task of modeling the Indian Railways reservation system. If this task is not done well, then what you get is a website which is slow, which does not respond, and the end result will be unsatisfactory. So for example, you will get messages like service is unavailable, or if you press any button, you get message like you have double clicked on any option or button. So from the browser's perspective or from a website perspective, it should not happen that double clicking an option logs you out of the system and you have to log back in again. So this is a problem of the modeling the issues and then solving it. If such things happen a lot, then you get frustrated and you might even feel like breaking your computer. The second step of programming is to obtain a logical solution to your problem. A logical solution is a finite and clear step-by-step procedure to solve the problem. So you have to be very careful when describing your solution. These two features are very, very important. The solution has to be finite and it has to be a very small step solution. So every step has to be clearly defined. In mathematical terms, this is also called an algorithm. We typically visualize algorithms using flowchart. And an algorithm is a very important step in the programming process because this is where you are describing your solution in a formal way. We have several occasions in real life when we see something which is quite similar to an algorithm. So some examples are recipes, the cooking recipes. For example, a cake. If you go to a website like Sanjeev Kapoor's website, you will see a recipe for a cake which describes step-by-step approach to bake a cake. Okay, so this is very similar to an algorithm because the steps are simple, and secondly, the number of steps or the recipe itself is a finite recipe. It finishes within some reasonable amount of time. Similarly, if you buy some toy for a kid, the make it yourself instructions there are also like algorithms. Okay, so these are not really algorithms because sometimes the steps are not very formal. There are steps which are missing, but these things are similar to an algorithm. The last step in programming is to describe your algorithm into a working code to the computer. This is the stage where you require a language to communicate with the computer. And this is where you have to understand the syntax and semantics of the programming language in which you are going to write the code. If your model or the logical solution is wrong, then your program is going to be wrong no matter how good a programmer you are. In computer terms, it is called if you put garbage in, you are going to get garbage out from the system. We will stop at this point for the first lecture. When creating a Python program, first thing you do is you write the program in an editor on your system. This editor can be a notepad or any other editor like Vim or Emacs. We'll come to this in details later. After writing the program, you run it with some inputs and then you check whether this run was okay or not. If the run was not okay, which means either it did not complete properly or the output generated is not correct, then you have to go back and change your program. This is once again done inside the editor. If the output was okay, then you look at other inputs that you have with you. If there are more inputs for testing, then you run the program again with the next input and you check the output once again. So you do with all possible inputs. If any time there is an incorrect output or the run is not okay, you have to fix your program. If all the inputs are exhausted and all the runs are proper, then you say that your program is correct and you finish the programming cycle. Note that the program can still fail on some unseen input, but provided that your input set covers all the scenario, this program is going to be right in most cases. So let's look at this programming cycle once again. Step 1 is to write your program or edit it, which means change or modify it. Then run your program on an input. So Python is an interpreted language. So unlike some other languages like C or C++ or Java, so in Python, there is no separate compilation step. When you run the program on some input. If the output is not correct, then you have to go back to step 1 and change your program to fix the issues that you have encountered. You repeat steps 2 and 3 for every input that you have.
Getting started. In this section, you will learn your first Python program called hello_world.py. So first of all, you will need to check whether a recent version of Python is installed on your computer system. If it is not, you will install it. You will also install a text editor to work with your Python programs. Now here we need to understand, text editors recognize Python code and highlight sections as you write, making it easy to understand your code structure. Setting up your programming environment. Python differs slightly on different operating systems. So you will need to keep a few considerations in mind. In the following sections, we will make sure Python is set up correctly on your computer system. Python versions. In this section, we'll find out if Python is already installed on your computer system and whether you need to install a newer version or not. Running snippets of Python code. You can run Python's interpreter in a terminal window. This will allow you to try bits of Python code without having to save and run an entire program. We will also use a text editor to create a simple program called Hello World. About the Sublime Text Editor. Sublime Text is a simple text editor that can be installed on all modern operating systems. Sublime Text lets you run almost all of your programs directly from the editor instead of through a terminal. Your code runs in a terminal session embedded in the Sublime Text window, which makes it easy to see the output. Sublime Text is a beginner-friendly editor, but many professional programmers use it as well. In this chapter, I will walk you through installing Sublime Text on your operating system. Python on different operating systems. Python is a cross-platform programming language, which means it runs on all the major operating systems. Any Python program you write should run on any modern computer that has Python installed. However, the methods for setting up Python on different operating systems vary slightly. Python on Windows. Windows doesn't always come with Python, so that means you will probably need to install it and then install Sublime Text. Installing Python. First, check whether Python is installed on your system. So open a command window by entering command into the start menu. Or we can do the same thing by holding down the shift key while right clicking on your desktop and selecting open command window here from the menu. In the terminal window, we need to enter Python in lowercase. If you get a Python prompt like this in response, that means Python is installed on your computer system. But if you see an error message telling you that Python is not recognized command, so that means Python is not installed on your computer system. In that case, or if you see a version of Python earlier than Python 3.6, you need to download a Python installer for Windows. So what we need to do is we need to go to https://python.org/ and hover over the download link. You should see a button for downloading the latest version of Python. So click the button, which should automatically start downloading the correct installer for your system. After you have downloaded the file, run the installer. Make sure you select the option Add Python to Path, which will make it easier to configure your system correctly. As we can see over here, Add Python to Path is selected. Running Python in a terminal session. Open a command window and enter Python in lowercase. You should see a Python prompt like this, which means Windows has found the version of Python you just installed. Now enter the following line in your Python session and make sure you see the output Hello Python interpreter. So enter print within brackets double quotes Hello Python interpreter exclamation mark Hello Python interpreter. So anytime you want to run a snippet of Python code, open a command window and start a Python terminal session. To close the terminal session, press Ctrl Z and then press enter or enter the command exit. Installing Sublime Text. You can download an installer for Sublime Text at https://sublimetext.com/. Now click the download link and look for a Windows installer. After downloading the installer, run the installer and accept all of its defaults. Python on Mac operating system. Python is already installed on most Mac operating systems, but it's most likely an outdated version. Checking whether Python 3 is installed or not. So to check that, we need to open a terminal window by going to Applications, Utilities, Terminal. You can also press Command spacebar, type terminal and then press enter. To see which version of Python is installed, enter Python with a lowercase p. This also starts the Python interpreter within the terminal. It will allow you to enter Python commands. You should see output telling you which Python version is installed on your system and a prompt where you can start entering Python commands like this. This output indicates that Python is currently the default version installed on this computer. Once you have seen this output, press Ctrl D or enter exit to leave the Python prompt and return to a terminal prompt. To check whether you have Python 3 installed, enter the command Python 3. You will probably get an error message. That means you don't have any versions of Python 3 installed. Installing the latest version of Python. You can find a Python installer for your system at https://python.org/. Now hover over the download link and you should see a button for downloading the latest Python version. Click on the button, which should automatically start downloading the correct installer for your system. After the file downloads, run the installer. When you are finished, enter the following at a terminal prompt. $Python 3 -- version Python 3.7.2. You should see output similar to this, in which case you are ready to try out Python. Whenever you see the command Python, make sure you use Python 3. Running Python in a terminal session. You can now try running snippets of Python code by opening a terminal and typing Python 3. So enter the following line in the terminal session. Print small bracket within double quotes Hello Python interpreter exclamation mark double quotes close and small bracket close. Hello Python interpreter. Your message should print directly in the current terminal window. Remember that you can close the Python interpreter just by pressing Ctrl D or by entering the command exit. Installing Sublime Text. To install Sublime Text Editor, you need to download the installer at https://sublimetext.com/. Click the download link and look for an installer for Mac OS. After the installer downloads, open it and then drag the Sublime Text icon into your application folder. Python on Linux. Linux systems are designed for programming, so Python is already installed on most Linux computers. Checking your version of Python. Open a terminal window by running the terminal application on your system. To find out which version of Python is installed, enter Python 3 with a lowercase p. When Python is installed, this command starts the Python interpreter. You should see output indicating which version of Python is installed and a prompt where you can start entering Python commands like this. Now this output indicates that Python 3.7.2 is currently the default version of Python installed on this computer. When you have seen this output, press Ctrl D or enter exit to leave the Python prompt and return to a terminal prompt. Whenever you see the Python command, enter Python 3 instead. Running Python in a terminal session. You can try running snippets of Python code by opening a terminal and entering Python 3 as you did when checking your version. Do this again, and when you have Python running, enter the following line in the terminal session. Print small bracket within double quotes hello Python interpreter and small bracket close. Hello Python interpreter. The message should print directly in the current terminal window. Remember that you can close the Python interpreter by pressing Ctrl D or just by entering the command exit. Installing Sublime Text. On Linux, you can install Sublime Text from the Ubuntu Software Center. Click the Ubuntu software icon in your menu and search for Sublime Text. Click to install it and then launch it. Running a Hello World program. With a recent version of Python and Sublime Text installed, you are almost ready to run your first Python program that is written in a text editor. But before doing so, you need to make sure Sublime Text is set up to use the correct version of Python on your system. Then you will write the Hello World program and run it. Configuring Sublime Text to use the correct Python version. If the Python command on your system runs Python 3, you won't need to configure anything and can skip to the next section. If you use the Python 3 command, you will need to configure Sublime Text to use the correct Python version when it runs on your program. So, click the Sublime Text icon to launch it, or search for Sublime Text in your system search bar and then launch it. Go to Tools, Build System, New Build System, which will open a new configuration file for you. Delete what you see and enter the following. Within curly braces, double quotes, cmd, square brackets, within double quotes type Python 3, within double quotes, -u, within double quotes, $file, square bracket close, then curly bracket close. This code tells Sublime Text to use your system's Python 3 command when running your Python program files. So save the file as python3.sublime-build in the default directory that Sublime Text opens when you choose save. Running hello_world.py. Before you write your first program, make a folder called python_work somewhere on your systems for your projects. It's best to use lowercase letters and underscores for spaces in file and folder names, because Python uses these naming conventions. Open Sublime Text and save an empty Python file called hello_world.py in your python_work folder. The extension .py tells Sublime Text that the code in your file is written in Python, which tells it how to run the program and highlight the text in a helpful way. After you have saved your file, enter the following line in the text editor. Print within small brackets, double quotes, hello Python world. If the Python command works on your system, you can run your program by selecting Tools, Build in the menu, or by pressing Ctrl B or Command B on Mac OS. If you had to configure Sublime Text in the previous section, select Tools, Build System, and then select Python 3. From now on, you will be able to select Tools, Build, or just press Ctrl B or Command B to run your programs. A terminal screen should appear at the bottom of the Sublime Text window showing the following output: Hello Python Word, finished in 0.1 second. Running Python programs from a terminal. Most of the programs you write in your text editor, you will run directly from the editor. But sometimes, it's useful to run programs from a terminal instead. For example, you might want to run an existing program without opening it for editing. You can do this on any system with Python installed if you know how to access the directory where the program file is stored. To try this, make sure you have saved the hello_word.py file in the python_work folder on your desktop. On Windows, you can use the terminal command cd for change directory to navigate through your file system in a command window. The command dir for directory shows you all the files that exist in the current directory. So, open a new terminal window and enter the following commands to run hello_word.py. cd desktop/python_work, desktop/python_work directory, hello_word.py, desktop/python_work, python hello_word.py, hello Python Word. At 1, you use the cd command to navigate to python_work folder, which is in the desktop folder. Next, you use the directory command to make sure hello_word.py is in this folder. Then, you run the file using the command python hello_word.py. On Mac operating system and Linux. Running a Python program from a terminal session is same on Linux and Mac operating system. You can use the terminal command cd for change directory to navigate through your file system in a terminal session. The command ls for list shows you all the non-hidden files that exist in the current directory. Open a new terminal window and enter the following command to run hello_word.py. $cd desktop/python_work/desktop/python_work $ls hello_word.py ~desktop/python_work $python hello_word.py hello Python Word. At 1, you use the cd command to navigate to python_work folder, which is in the desktop folder. Next, you use the ls command to make sure hello_word.py is in this folder. Then you run the file using the command python hello_word.py. It's that simple. You just use the Python or Python 3 command to run Python programs. Chapter 2: Variables and Simple Data Types. In this chapter, you will learn about the different kinds of data you can work with in your Python programs. You will also learn how to use variables to represent data in your programs. What really happens when you run hello_word.py? Let's take a closer look at what Python does when you run hello_word.py. As it turns out, Python does a fair amount of work, even when it runs a simple program. For example, hello_word.py, like print within small brackets, double quotes, hello Python Word. So when you run this code, you should see this output, hello Python Word. When you run the file hello_word.py, the ending .py indicates that the file is a Python program. Your editor then runs the file through the Python interpreter, which reads through the program and determines what each word in the program means. For example, when the interpreter sees the word print followed by parenthesis, it prints to the screen whatever is inside the parenthesis. As you write your programs, your editor highlights different parts of your program in different ways. For example, it recognizes the print is the name of a function and displays that word in one color. It recognizes that hello Python word that is put within double quotes is not Python code and displays that phrase in a different color. This feature is called syntax highlighting and is quite useful as you to start write to your own programs. Variables. Let's try using variables in hello_word.py. Add a new line at the beginning of the file and modify the second line. So, we are going to type message is equal to within double quotes hello Python word print message. Now run this program to see what happens. You should see the same output you saw previously. Hello Python word. We have added a variable named message. Every variable is connected to a value which is the information associated with the variable. In this case, the value is the hello Python word text. Adding a variable makes a little more work for the Python interpreter. When it processes the first line, it associates the variable message with the hello Python word text. When it reaches the second line, it prints the value associated with the message to the screen. Naming and using variables. When you are using variables in Python, you need to adhere to a few rules and guidelines. And these guidelines are: variable names can contain only letters, numbers, and underscores. They can start with a letter or an underscore, but not with a number. For instance, you can call a variable message_1, but not one_message. So we need to keep in mind this rule because it is very important. The second rule: spaces are not allowed in variable names, but underscores can be used to separate words in variable names. For example, greeting_message works. That means it is okay. But greeting space message will cause errors. Avoid using Python keywords and function names as variable names. That is, do not use words that Python has reserved for a particular programmatic purpose, such as the word print. So that means we cannot create a variable with the name print. Variable names should be short but descriptive. For example, name is better than n, student_name is better than s_n, and name_length is better than length_of_persons_name. Rule number 5. Be careful when using the lowercase letter l and the uppercase letter o, because they could be confused with the numbers 1 and 0. Avoiding name errors when using variables. We will write some code that generates an error on purpose. So enter the following code including the misspelled word message shown in bold. So when you type in message is equal to hello Python programmer print message. When an error occurs in your program, the Python interpreter does its best to help you figure out where the problem is. The interpreter provides a traceback when a program cannot run successfully. A traceback is a record of where the interpreter ran into trouble when trying to execute your code. Here's an example of the traceback that Python provides after you accidentally misspelled a variable's name. Traceback most recent call last file within double quotes hello_word.py, line 2, in module. Print message. Name error, name within single quotes message that is misspelled is not defined. The output at number 1 reports that an error occurs in line 2 of the file hello_word.py. The interpreter shows this line 2 to help us spot the error quickly and tells us what kind of error it found in number 3. In this case, it found a name error and reports that the variable being printed, message, has not been defined. Python can't identify the variable name provided. A name error usually means we either forget to set a variable's value before using it, or we made a spelling mistake when entering the variable's name. Of course, in this example, we omitted the letter S in the variable name message in the second line. The Python interpreter doesn't spell check your code, but it does ensure that variables' names are spelled consistently. For example, watch what happens when we spell message incorrectly in another place in the code as well. So, we need to type in message, which is misspelled, is equal to hello Python programmer. In this case, the program runs successfully and we get the output hello Python programmer. Programming languages are strict, but they disregard good and bad spellings. As a result, you don't need to consider English spelling and grammar rules when you are trying to create variable names and writing code. Variables are labels. Variables are often described as boxes you can store values in. In Python, it's much better to think of variables as labels that you can assign to values. You can also say that a variable references a certain value. Now it's time to try it yourself. Write a separate program to accomplish each of these exercises. Save each program with a file name that follows standard Python conventions using lowercase letters and underscores, such as simple_message.py and simple_messages.py. Simple message. Assign a message to a variable and then print that message. The second, simple messages. Assign a message to a variable and print that message, then change the value of that variable to a new message and print the new message. Strings. Because most programs define and gather some sort of data and then do something useful with it, it helps to classify different types of data. The first data type we will look at is the string. So, a string is a series of characters. Anything inside quotes is considered a string in Python. And you can use single or double quotes around your string like this. So we can type within double quotes, this is a string, or we can use single quote, so single quotes, this is also a string. So that is up to you whether we want to use double quotes or we want to use single quotes. Now this flexibility allows you to use quotes and apostrophes within your strings. For example, within single quotes, this is a string. Now we can also enclose this string word with double quotes. Then within double quotes, the Python language. Here, if we want to put this word Python in single quotes, we can do that. So we can this within double quotes, Python is good. Changing case in a string with methods. One of the simplest tasks you can do with strings is change the case of the word in a string. Look at the following code and try to determine what's happening. So we need to type in name is equal to Ame Karkare, print within parenthesis or small bracket name.title, something like this. Save this file as name.py and then run it. You should see this output, Ame Karkare. In this example, the variable name refers to the lowercase string Ame Karkare. The method title appears after the variable in the print call. Now here we need to understand, a method is an action that Python can perform on a piece of data. The dot after name in name.title tells Python to make the title method act on the variable name. Every method is followed by a set of parentheses because methods often need additional information to do their work. That information is provided inside the parentheses. The title function doesn't need any additional information, so its parentheses are empty. The title method changes each word to title case, where each word begins with a capital letter. This is useful because you will often want to think of a name as a piece of information. For example, you might want your program to recognize the input values ame, ame and ame as the same name and display all them as ame. Several other useful methods are available for dealing with cases as well. For example, you can change a string to all uppercase or all lowercase letters like this. Name is equal to ame karkare, print name.upper, something like this, print name.lower. This will display the following: ame karkare, ame karkare. Using variables in strings. In some situations, you will want to use a variable's value inside a string. For example, you might want two variables to represent a first name and a last name respectively, and then want to combine those values to display someone's full name. So first underscore name is equal to ame, last underscore name is equal to karkare, full underscore name is equal to f within double quotes curly braces, first underscore name, once again curly braces, last underscore name, print full underscore name. To insert a variable's value into a string, place the letter F immediately before the opening quotation mark, put braces around the name or names of any variable you want to use inside the string. Python will replace each variable with its value when the string is displayed. These strings are called F strings. The F is for the format because Python formats the string by replacing the name of any variable in braces with its value. The output from the previous code is ame karkare. You can do a lot with F strings. For example, you can use F strings to compose complete messages using the information associated with a variable as shown here. Print F within double quotes hello, comma, curly bracket, full underscore name dot title, curly bracket close, exclamation mark, then double quotes close. The full name is used in a sentence that greets the user, and the title method changes the name to title case. This code returns a simple but nicely formatted greetings. Hello, ame karkare. You can also use F strings to compose a message and then assign the entire message to a variable. Message is equal to F within double quotes hello, comma, within curly brackets, full underscore name dot title, then double quotes close. Print message. This code displays the message hello ame karkare as well, but by assigning the message to a variable, we make the final print call much simpler. Adding white space to strings with tabs or new lines. In programming, white space refers to any non-printing character such as spaces, tabs, and end of line symbols. You can use white space to organize your output so it's easier for users to read. To add a tab to your text, use the character combination /t as shown at 1. Print within double quotes Python, print within double quotes /t Python, Python. To add a new line in a string, use the character combination \n. So print within double quotes languages : \n Python \n C \n JavaScript, double quotes close. Now we will get the output languages, Python, C, JavaScript. You can also combine tabs and new lines in a single string. The string \n\t tells Python to move to a new line and start the next line with a tab. The following example shows how you can use a one-line string to generate 4 lines of output. Print within parentheses double quotes languages \n\t Python \n\t C \n\t JavaScript, double quotes close. The output will be something like this: languages, Python, C, JavaScript. Stripping white space. Extra white space can be confusing in your programs. To programmers, Python and Python look pretty much the same, but to a program, they are 2 different strings. Python detects the extra space in Python and considers it significant unless you tell it otherwise. It's important to think about white space because often you will want to compare 2 strings to determine whether they are the same. For example, one important instance might involve checking people's usernames when they log into a website. Python can look for extra white space on the right and left sides of a string. To ensure that no white space exists at the right end of a string, use the rstrip method. So favorite_language is equal to Python favorite_language favorite_language.rstrip favorite_language. The value associated with favorite_language at 1 contains extra white space at the end of the string. When you ask Python for this value in a terminal session, you can see the space at the end of the value in number 2. When the rstrip method acts on the variable favorite_language at number 3, this extra space is removed. However, it is only removed temporarily. If you ask for the value of favorite_language again, you can see that the string looks the same as when it was entered, including the extra white space in number 4. To remove the white space from the string permanently, you have to associate the stripped value with the variable name. So favorite_language is equal to Python in single quotes. Favorite_language is equal to favorite_language dot rstrip method favorite_language. Now to remove the white space from the string, you strip the white space from the right side of the string and then associate this new value with the original variable as shown at number 1. You can also strip white space from the left side of a string using the lstrip method or from both sides at once using strip method. So favorite_language is equal to, within single quotes, Python favorite_language dot rstrip, then favorite_language dot lstrip, then favorite_language dot strip. In this example, we start with a value that has a white space at the beginning and the end at number 1. We then remove the extra space from the right side at number 2, from the left side at number 3, and from both sides at number 4. Experimenting with these stripping functions can help you become familiar with manipulating strings. In the real world, these stripping functions are used most often to clean up user input before it's stored in a program. Avoiding syntax errors with strings. One kind of error that you might see with some regularity is a syntax error. A syntax error occurs when Python doesn't recognize a section of your program as valid Python code. For example, if you use an apostrophe within single quotes, you will produce an error. This happens because Python interprets everything between the first single quote and the apostrophe as a string. It then tries to interpret the rest of the text as Python code. And this can cause errors. Here's how to use single and double quotes correctly. Save this program as apostrophe.py and then run it. So message is equal to I am Ame Karkare. Print message. Now the apostrophe appears inside a set of double quotes. So the Python interpreter has no trouble reading the string correctly. And it will give us the output I am Ame Karkare. However, if you use single quotes, Python can't identify whether the string should end. Now it's time to try it yourself. Save each of the following exercises as a separate file with a name cases.py. Personal message. Use a variable to represent a parent's name and print a message to that person. Your message should be simple, such as hello, Ame Karkare. Would you like to learn some Python today? Name cases. Use a variable to represent a person's name and then print that person's name in lowercase, uppercase, and title case. Famous quote. Find a quote from a famous person you admire, print the quote and the name of its author. Your output should look something like the following, including the quotation marks. For example, we can take the example of Albert Einstein. So we can type in Albert Einstein once said, comma, with double quotes, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. Famous quote 2. Repeat exercise 2.5, but this time represent the famous person's name using a variable called famous_person. Then compose your message and represent it with a new variable called message. Print your message. Stripping names. Use a variable to represent a person's name and include some whitespace characters at the beginning and the end of the name. Make sure you use each character combination \t and \n at least once. Print the name once so the whitespace around the name is displayed. Then print the name using each of the three stripping functions lstrip, rstrip, and sstrip function. Numbers. Numbers are used quite often in programming to keep score in games, represent data in visualization, store information in web applications, and so on. Python treats numbers in several different ways, depending on how they are being used. Let's first look at how Python manages integers because they are the simplest to work with. Integers. You can add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers in Python. For example, 2 plus 3, 5, 3 minus 2, 1, 2 multiplied by 3, 6, and 3 divided by 2, 1.5. In a terminal session, Python simply returns the result of the operation. Python uses two multiplication symbols to represent exponents. For example, if you want to find the square of 3, we will write it like this: 3, 2 multiplication sign, 2, and the output will be 9. 3, 2 multiplication sign, 3, 27. Then 10, 2 multiplication sign, 6. So this is the output of 10 to power 6. Python supports the order of operations too. So you can use multiple operations in one expression. You can also use parentheses to modify the order of operations. So Python can evaluate your expression in the order you specify. For example, 2 plus 3 multiplied by 4. Now here the precedence of multiplication is higher than the addition. So first of all it will multiply the number, that is 4 3s are 12 plus 2 is equal to 14. Now if we want to change the precedence or we want to change the order of operation, we need to use parentheses. So let's say we don't want to multiply 3 and 4 first. Instead, we want to add 2 plus 3 first, and then whatever outcome we get, we want to multiply it with 4. So we will put 2 plus 3 within parentheses, then multiplied by 4. Now this time it will add 2 plus 3, which is 5, and then multiply it with 4. So 5 4 are 20. The spacing in these examples has no effect on how Python evaluates the expression. It simply helps you more quickly spot the operations that have priority when you are reading through the code. Floats. Python calls any number with a decimal point a float. This term is used in most programming languages, and it refers to the fact that a decimal point can appear at any position in a number. For the most part, you can use decimals without worrying about how they behave. Simply enter the numbers you want to use and Python will most likely do what you expect. For example, 0.1 plus 0.1, 0.2, 0.2 plus 0.2, 0.4. 2 multiplied by 0.1 is equal to 0.2. Then 2 multiplied by 0.2 is equal to 0.4. But be aware that you can something get an arbitrary number of decimal places in your answer. For example, 0.2 plus 0.1, 0.3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 4. 3 multiplied by 0.1, 0.3 and the same outcome. This happens in all languages. Python tries to find a way to represent the result as precisely as possible, which is sometimes difficult given how computers have to represent numbers internally. Just ignore the extra decimal places for now. You will learn ways to deal with the extra places when you need to in the projects. Integers and floats. When you divide any two numbers, even if they are integers that result in a whole number, you will always get a float. For example, 4 divided by 2, 2.0. If you mix an integer and a float in any other operation, you will get a float as well. For example, 1 plus 2.0, 3.0, 2 multiplied by 3.0, it's 6.0, 3.0, 2 multiplication sign, 2, 9.0. Python defaults to float in any operation that uses a float, even if the output is a whole number. Underscores in numbers. When you are writing long numbers, you can group digits using underscores to make large numbers more readable. Age is equal to 14 underscore 000 underscore 000 underscore 000. When you print a number that was defined using underscores, Python prints only the digits. So print age and we will get this. Python ignores the underscores when storing these kinds of values, even if you don't group the digits in threes. The value will still be unaffected. To Python, 1000 is the same as 1 underscore 000, which is the same as 10 underscore 00. This feature works for integers and floats, but it's only available in Python 3.6 and later versions. Multiple assignments. You can assign values to more than one variable using just a single line. This can help shorten your programs and make them easier to read. You will use this technique most often when initializing a set of numbers. For example, here's how you can initialize the variable x, y, and z to 0. So x, y, z is equal to 0, 0, 0. You need to separate the variable names with commas and do the same with the values. and Python will assign each value to its respectively positioned variable. As long as the number of values matches the number of variables, Python will match them up correctly. So in this situation, x has been assigned a value 0, y has been assigned a value 0, and z variable has also been assigned a value 0. Constants. A constant is like a variable whose value stays the same throughout the life of a program. Python doesn't have built-in constant types, but Python programmers use all capital letters to indicate a variable should be treated as a constant and never be changed. For example, max_connections is equal to 5000. When you want to treat a variable as a constant in your code, make the name of the variable all capital letters and that's it. Now it's time to try it yourself. Number 8. Write addition, subtraction, multiplication and division operations that each result in the number 8. Be sure to enclose your operations in print calls to see the results. You should create 4 lines that look like this. Print 5 plus 3. Your output should simply be 4 lines with the number 8 appearing once on each line. Favorite number. Use a variable to represent your favorite number. Then using that variable, create a message that reveals your favorite number. Print that message. Comments. Comments are an extremely useful feature in most programming languages. Everything you have written in your program so far is Python code. As your programs become longer and more complicated, you should add notes within your programs that describes your overall approach to the problem you are solving. A comment allows you to write notes in English within your program. Now the question is, how do you write comments? In Python, the hash mark indicates a comment. Anything following a hash mark in your code is ignored by the Python interpreter. For example, hash say hello to everyone, print within double quotes, hello Python people. Python ignores the first line and executes the second line. Why? Because the first line is a comment. What kind of comment should you write? The main reason to write comments is to explain what your code is supposed to do and how you are making it work. If you want to become a professional programmer or collaborate with other programmers, you should write meaningful comments. Now it's time to try it yourself. Adding comments. Choose 2 of the programs you have written and add at least 1 comment in each. If you don't have anything specific to write because your programs are too simple at this point, then what you can do? Just add your name and the current date at the top of each program file. Then write 1 sentence describing what the program does. Now it's time for the summary. So in this chapter, you learn to work with variables. You learn to use descriptive variable names and how to resolve name errors and syntax errors when they arise. You learned what strings are and how to display strings using lowercase, uppercase, and title case. You started using whitespace to organize output neatly, and you learned to strip unneeded whitespace from different parts of a string. You started working with integers and floats and learned some of the ways you can work with numerical data. You also learned to write explanatory comments to make your code easier for you and others to read. In chapter 3, we will learn to store collections of information in data structures called list. You will learn to work through a list, manipulating any information in that list.
Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python from Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In today's module, we will look at the elements of a Python program. We have already seen how to read a value from a user and how to print some computed value back to the user. but in today's lecture we will look into the parts of a Python program in more details. Each Python program is a sequence of certain definitions and certain commands or statements. The commands manipulate objects. We have seen simple objects like integer objects, the values 3, 5, 8, and we have seen certain strings like welcome to Python 3. Every object in Python is associated with a type. A type is nothing but a set of values and a set of operations which are valid on these values. Python program commands consist of expressions. The expressions are typically operations which operate certain operator on a combination of objects. Let's look at types in more details. So we have been using types since our earlier days. In school mathematics, we have seen natural numbers. So the values like 1, 2, 3 and so on. And the operations that are valid on these natural numbers are plus, minus, multiplication, greater than, less than and so on. Similarly, in some higher classes, we must have seen types like complex numbers. In this case, the values are of the form 5 plus 3i or 7 plus 2i. So basically the value consists of two parts, the real part and the imaginary part. The operations that are allowed on complex numbers are plus, minus, multiplication, division. Then there is a special operation conjugate and so on. But remember that operations like greater than and less than are not valid on complex numbers. So if we are talking about a type complex number, then we cannot talk about comparison of two complex numbers except their equality. In Python, there are few different types. So some of the common types are the int type, which represents bounded integers. For example, the value 732 or -5. Float, this is used to approximately represent real numbers, for example 3.14 or 2.0. Python has a type called long. This is also to represent integers which are large, and there is no limit on this type. str type, so Python strings have type str. For example, the word hello within single quotes or the letter C within single quotes are all of type str in Python. Python types can be broadly categorized into two major classes, the scalar types and the non-scalar types. In the scalar types, we have indivisible objects that do not have any internal structure. So you can think about scalar types as the type where only value is important. So for example, an int, a float, a bool which has value true or false, and finally a special type called none type. So none type is a special type which has a single value, and this value is called none. Okay. So for a scalar object, the structure is not important. In fact, we cannot even think about anything beyond values for scalar objects. In contrast, non-scalar objects have some internal structure. So when we think about a string, we can think about sequence of characters that create this string. So in that sense, str type has a structure. Python allows us to find type of a given expression. There is a function appropriately named type which allows us to find the type of an expression. We'll look at some simple example usage of type function. So when we say type of a value 500, we know that 500 is an integer and Python gives us appropriate output as int. We can also ask type of a negative number -200 and the Python will again correctly respond as int. Type of a real number like 3.1413 is float. Python has Boolean type which have just two values, true and false. So whenever we ask type of true, it turns out to be bool. And strings have type str. So hello class within single quotes will be given type str. As I said, you can also find type of an expression. So we can put complicated expression inside the type function argument. So type of 3 not equal to 2 is bool, because we know that this is an expression which will evaluate to false, which happens to be a Boolean type value. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python from Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In today's lecture, we will look at type conversion, also called typecasting. In practical program, many times you get a scenario where you have to convert value of one type to value of another type. So type conversion allows us to convert value of one type to another. We are used to int to float conversion in math. Many times when we want integer 3 to be treated as a real number, we use its value as 3.0. On the other hand, a floating point value 3.6 is treated as integer 3 due to truncation, or it is rounded up to 4 for integer context. In Python, we can use type names as type converter function as well. So let's look at some examples. So if we say int of a floating point value 2.5, the result we get is 2. Similarly, int value corresponding to floating point value 2.3 is also 2. So what we note here is that float to int conversion in Python corresponds to truncation and not to rounding off. If you have to round off a floating point value to the nearest integer, then you have to use some other function. Type conversion will always truncate the decimal part or remove the decimal part of the floating point value. You can also convert an integer into float by using float type converter. So float of 3 is 3.0. Similarly, if a string consists of digits only, then we can use int type converter to extract the integer value corresponding to the string. So in this example, the string value 73 is converted to integer value 73. However, you have to be careful with this conversion, because in case the value inside the string does not have a natural integer meaning, in that case, Python program will throw up an error. So here is an example. The string acads does not have any corresponding meaning as an integer. So we get an error from Python, which is given in the last line. Invalid literal for int with base 10. So the simple meaning of this particular line is that the string acads does not have a simple meaning as an integer. Conversely, we can convert an integer or a floating point value to a string by calling str type converter. Remember our earlier program where we were asking a user about his or her age and printing it back? Suppose I want to change this program a little bit. Instead of printing the age of user today, we want to print his or her age 5 years from now. The corresponding program will look something like what is in front of your screen. However, note that when we try to print age plus 5, we will get an error from Python. This is because of the fact that any input that you take from Python program is of type string, and therefore adding a value 5 to a string type does not make any sense, and therefore Python gives you a type error saying that int object cannot be added or converted to str implicitly. So how do we fix this? The fix is to make sure the value age is treated as an integer, and again, assuming users are giving us proper integer value in their age, we can directly use int type converter. So the correct program in this case will be int value corresponding to age plus 5, and in this case the output that you will get is in 5 years your age will be 40. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python from Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In today's lecture, we will look at expressions. In particular, we will look at the operators that are commonly used in Python program. Python program have all the common operators, arithmetic operators like plus, minus, multiplication, division, integer division, remainder, and exponentiation. For comparison, it has equality, inequality, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to operator. For assignment, it has different type of assignment operators, simple assignment, add and assign, subtract and assign, and so on. It has logical operator which work on Boolean values. So these are logical AND, logical OR, and logical NOT operators. Then it has bitwise operator to work on bit streams. Python also has membership operators which query a sequence or some kind of set to find membership of an object. So it can tell whether something is member of a sequence using in function and whether something is not a member of a sequence using not in function. Python also has something called identity operator. So it can tell whether x, a variable x, is something similar to some other variable y or not. These operators will be covered in the class on need basis. So we will not go over this operator one by one, but as I explain other concepts, so I will be discussing the operators which are important for that concept. Python also uses variables. A variable is nothing but a name associated with an object. To assign value to a variable, we use assignment operator which binds the value with the variable name. So consider this assignment m equals 64. In this case, the value 64 is getting bound to the name m. To explain it in more details, so intuitively consider the memory of your computer system. When we say m is assigned 64, we can think of an object 64 being created and stored in the memory of your system, and the name m is now referring to whatever place this value 64 is being stored. So whenever we say m, we are now referring to this object 64. Similarly, if we say C is assigned Python, so once again the space to store the string Python is reserved in the memory, the value Python is written there, and the name C is now used to refer to this value Python. Same thing happens if we use a floating point value. In Python, variables don't change their values unlike other languages like C or Java. Instead, whenever we overwrite a variable, we really create a new value in the memory and change the binding from old value to the new value. So when I say f is assigned 2.7183, let's say in continuation of the earlier program which has assigned 3.1416 to f, in this case the binding of f changes from value 3.1416 to 2.7183. So in the subsequent program, whenever we refer to f, we mean its binding to the value 2.7183. Note that the names of these variables cannot be arbitrary strings, but there are certain rules. So the names in Python which are given to different objects are called identifiers. So these names can be of variables or functions or the user defined types that we will see later. An identifier or a name can consist of letters, digits, and underscore symbol. The only restriction is that first character cannot be a digit. It has to be a letter or an underscore. So the name or an identifier in Python can start only with a letter or underscore. So here are some examples of valid identifiers in Python. The name I, name count, lab5 which starts with capital L, or the name max underscore profit, all are valid identifiers. Even something which mixes capital and small cases, like this last name funny. On the other hand, the following are not valid identifiers. So 5J is not valid because it starts with a digit. Min space profit is not valid because a valid identifier name cannot contain a space. And finally, lab.7 is not valid because a valid identifier name cannot contain character dot. So even though the restrictions are very less, we still have to be careful about certain names which are used by others, in specific context. So we call them reserved names in Python. So these names have special meaning and they cannot be used as an identifier even though they follow all the rules or restrictions which were described in the earlier slide. So some of the reserved words in Python are the value false with a capital F, similarly the value true with a capital T, the name class, the name in, the name is. If you remember, these are special operators in Python, in and is. Similarly, AND is the function which does logical AND and so on. Another interesting thing is that Python identifiers are case sensitive, which means even if there is a single character which differs in case between two identifiers, then the names are distinct. So the identifier ACADS with a capital A is not same as the identifier ACADS where all the letters are small. Even though Python puts very minimal restrictions on how to choose identifier name, it is always a good idea to choose descriptive name for your identifiers. Here are certain guidelines to help you name your identifier so that others can also read your program and understand it without much difficulty and your program remains maintainable. So you should always choose meaningful name. For example, if you have a variable that counts something, it's better to call it count and not C or temp1. It will help others to know the meaning of the variable. The name should be easy to read and understand. For example, excessive use of underscores is not a good practice. You can shorten certain names when there is no loss of meaning. For example, the term max is well known to be a short form of the name maximum. And finally, avoid unnecessary long names. So even if you are using a counter, you should also avoid unnecessary long names. So calling a loop counter as a underscore loop underscore counter is probably useless. You can call it counter, or most of the programmers are even comfortable with calling it I because it's getting used so often. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python by Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In this module, we will talk about assignment statement in Python, and we'll also spend some time on comments in Python. A simple assignment statement in Python has the form variable followed by assignment operator followed by an expression. This statement computes the value or the object corresponding to the expression on the right hand side, also called RHS. It associates the name or the variable that is on the left hand side of assignment with the value that you computed. The equal sign itself is known as the assignment operator. So here are some examples. This simple statement x assigned 10, it will take the value 10 and bind the variable named x with this value 10. In the second example, we are computing a complex expression b times b minus 4 times ac. Compute its value and assign it to the variable name disk_2. So after this assignment statement, the variable name discriminant squared or disk_2 is bound to the value of b square minus 4ac. Here is another assignment. In this case, the value of count plus 1 is bound to the variable count. So the evaluation of assignment statement in Python happens as follows. First, the expression on the right hand side of the assignment operator is evaluated. The value that is obtained is bound to the variable on the LHS. So this means that when we are evaluating the value of the expression on the right hand side, we are going to use the values of individual variables in the expression that exist before this particular statement. What this means is, if count was bound to an object 5 before the assignment, it will be bound to object 6 after the assignment. Python has this interesting feature called multiple assignments. So it means you can assign multiple variables on the left hand side in a single statement. So in this case, we are saying the variables x and y get the value 10 and 20 respectively. So this particular statement does multiple assignments. It binds x to the value 10 and y to the value 20. The rules for evaluation of multiple assignments are as follows. First, all the expressions on the right hand side of the assignment operator are evaluated. This happens before any of the binding happens. So this is very, very important. After all the evaluations have happened for the right hand side of the assignment operator, only then the values of the expressions are bound to the corresponding variables on the left hand side. Now note that this means that the number of variables on the left hand side of the assignment operator have to be the same as the number of expressions on the right hand side. Later we will see, when we have complex data type like sequences, we will have to have some kind of correspondence between the sequence on the left hand side and the sequence on the right hand side. But for now, we will assume the number of variables on left hand side is same as the number of expressions on the right hand side. Otherwise, Python will give an exception or it will throw an error. So here is another program. So in this case, the first line assigns value 10 to variable x and value 20 to variable y. The second line, using above rules, first all the expressions on the right hand side are evaluated, which means we get a value 21 for y plus 1 and 11 for x plus 1, and subsequently these values are bound to variables x and y. So the x gets the value 21 and y gets the value 11 at the end of these two lines. Like all high level languages, Python allows users to write comments in their program. Comments are nothing but supplementary information that allow understanding of programs that makes understanding of programs easier for the user. Comments are only for humans. These are ignored by Python interpreter. In Python, the pound or hash sign denotes the start of a comment. Anything written after this pound or hash sign up to the end of that line is considered a comment and it is ignored by Python interpreter. Here are a couple of examples. In the first line, diameter is assigned 2 times radius, and then we have a comment that says that we are computing diameter of a circle. The next line assigns something to the variable area, and the comment tells us that it's the area of the same circle. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python by Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In today's lecture, we will look at arithmetic operators. So let's look at binary operators first. So we are used to binary arithmetic operator. The common operators are plus for addition. So in this case, 9 plus 2 is 11 and 9.1 plus 2.0 is 11.1. So this has the very regular day-to-day meaning of addition. Similarly, subtraction or minus. So when we have two integers, the result is also an integer, and when we have one or both argument as floating point values, the result is also a floating point value. So 9 minus 2 is 7 and 9.1 minus 2.0 is 7.1. Multiplication is also intuitive. So 9 multiplied by 2 is 18, while 9.1 multiplied by 2.0 is 18.2. Now the slightly different operator is division. So division has two flavors in Python. Let's look at the regular division, which is denoted by a single forward slash. In this case, 9 divided by 2, the result is floating point value 4.25. Now those who are used to Python 2, please note that this behavior is different from Python 2. So in Python 3, single forward slash always does complete real division, whether the arguments are integer or floating point. To get integer division, or what we are used to calling as quotient, we have to use two forward slash symbols. In this case, the result is integer division. So 9 integer divided by 2, the result is 4. What remains can be obtained by using the remainder operator, which is this percent symbol. So 9 remainder 2 is 1, or 9 modulo 2 is 1. Python also has unary arithmetic operators. In this case, operators take only one argument or only one operand to act upon. The examples are negative 5 or positive 3.0123, or even with variables you can say negative of b. So in this case, whatever value b holds, we will get the negative of that value. Observe that the symbol plus and minus are having multiple purpose in this case. So they can either mean addition of two values, or it can also mean just a positive value that we have or a negative value that we have in hand. So this meaning depends on the context where you are placing the symbol. This is called overloading, and it's a very important concept in programming languages because it allows us to use same symbol in different contexts which are somehow different. Let's look at the integer division operator in some more details. The double forward slash is also referred to as integer division. The result of this operator is a whole integer, which is the floor of the real division or the complete division operation. However, the type need not be int. So even though we get a complete integral value, the type can be float, as we will see later in an example. So this value is the integral part of real division. So we ignore the decimal part, if any. The result is rounded towards an integer that is closer to minus infinity than the complete division value. So here are some examples. The integer division of 9 by 4 has value 2 because the real division will have a value 2.5 and we are moving towards minus infinity. So the nearest integer in the direction of minus infinity is 2. If we divide minus 1 by 2, then the answer is minus 0.5. And so if we move towards an integer which is closer to minus infinity, then the value is minus 1, and therefore the result of minus 1 integer division by 2 is minus 1. The interesting case is last one. So it is not necessary to have both the argument as integers. You can also mix integers with float while doing integer division. So in this case, the result is 2.0 because that is the value of 9 integer division by 4.5. And note that the result is not of type int, but it is of type float. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python by Electronics and ICT Academy. In this module, we will look at operator precedence. To understand operator precedence, let's recap what we have covered till now. We have looked at Python program as a sequence of commands. Each of these commands manipulate objects. The objects have types and the commands contain operations. We have already seen examples of arithmetic operations, but there can be logical operations or relational operations and so on. It is also possible to have multiple operations in a single command. Now in the presence of multiple operators, how do we resolve the operands for each of the operator? This is where operator precedence comes into picture. When there are more than one operator in an expression, the identification of the arguments is based on the precedence of the operator. This is defined for a language by language designer, but it follows common intuition that we have gained during our mathematics classes earlier. So parentheses have the highest precedence. Precedence order for some common operators we'll describe in the next slide. But to know the precedence of all the operators in a language, you have to consult a textbook or some website. So here are precedence of some common operators. The unary operators plus and minus, they have the highest precedence and they associate from right to left, which means if there are more than one unary plus in an expression, they will pick their arguments to their right first. Multiplication, division, remainder, integer division, these are next highest precedence operators and they associate from left to right, which means when you have more than one multiplication operator in an expression, in that case you will supply them argument from left to right. Addition and subtraction are at next precedence level. They also associate from left to right. The relational operation less than, greater than, etc. They are at the next level of precedence. Below relational comparisons, we have equality and not equality. And the assignment operator is at the lowest level. So once again, this is intuitive because you want to perform evaluation of all the expressions before you actually assign value to the left hand side. So here is an example. For the given expression, you have to compute what is the value assigned to x. So let's wait for a moment so that you can compute the value. So the value of the expression on the right hand side is minus 32, because the expression can be parenthesized as follows. We have already said unary minus and unary plus have highest precedence. So minus 5 happens first, so it has to be grouped in one parenthesis. Similarly, minus 1 should be evaluated before anything else happens, and so on. So you can see that when you have multiple operators in a single command, it can be very difficult to get correct precedence. So therefore, you should avoid relying on operator precedence. It can give absurd result if not used correctly. So whenever you are in doubt, use parenthesis to define precedence. It is safer and it is easier to read as well. However, too many parentheses can also make your expression look ugly. So you have to use your judgment. You can consult any book or online documentation to know more about precedences. Hello and welcome to Programming Using Python by Electronics and ICT Academy, IIT Kanpur. In this module, we will look at Boolean expressions. A Boolean expression is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. One of the ways to get Boolean value is to use relational operators. So relational operators compare two quantities for equality, inequality, or greaterness or less than. So here are certain relational operators that produce Boolean values. The greater than operator, which tells whether an object is strictly greater than other, greater than or equal to operator. Then there is a less than operator, less than or equal to operator. The comparison operator, which compares two objects being same or equal, and the not equal operator. So let's look at some examples of these relational operators. So we have for each relational expression the intended result and some remarks in some cases. So 3 greater than 2, this is clearly true because 3 as a value is more than the value 2, and 3 greater than 3 is false because 3 is same as 3, not greater. We can use comparison operators between string operands as well. In this case, the operator greater than is true if the second string comes lexicographically before the first string. So for example, string Z is greater than string A because in a dictionary A comes before Z or Z comes after A. 2 equal to 3 is clearly false. Car less than carpet is true because once again, if you look at a dictionary, car will come before carpet. Remember that Python is case sensitive with strings. So if we have two strings, one capital car and another which is car in a small case, then these two strings are not equal or they are not the same. Car less than do is true because once again in a dictionary car will come before the word do. 5 not equal to 10 is true because these two values are not same. Now here is an interesting comparison, 1.0 equal to 1. So if you try this expression on Python shell, you will get a value true, which seems to be correct. However, it is advisable not to compare integers and floating points in this manner, because for some values it may give unexpected result due to floating point approximation. We will look at this fact in more details later, but until then you should avoid mixing integer and float values while doing comparison. Comparison of floats is not exact, So sometimes even though two values which might look similar, they might produce unexpected result. Other kind of operators that produce Boolean values are logical operators. So logical operators take two Boolean expressions and produce a Boolean value as output. There are three logical operators: the logical AND, the logical OR, and the logical NOT operator. Logical AND and logical OR are implemented as short circuit operations. Again, we will discuss short circuit nature of these operations after some time. Currently, we will assume that these operators behave as their truth table imply. So here are the truth table for AND operation and OR operator. So AND operator is true if both its arguments evaluate to true. If any one of the argument of AND operator evaluates to false, then the result of AND operation is also false. On the other hand, OR operation is true if any of its argument evaluates to true. It evaluates to false only when both its argument E1 and E2 evaluate to false. Logical NOT operator flips the true and false nature of its. So NOT of false is true and NOT of true is false. In Python, you can create very complex expressions involving arithmetic, logical, and relational operators, constants, variables, function calls, etc. So here is a very complicated expression. So it combines arithmetic operators like plus and minus with relational operations like greater than and less than, and it also includes logical operations like AND, NOT, OR, and certain function calls like square root, absolute, and it also operates on variables like xyz and constants like 3 and 93. So all this is possible because Python allows you to combine expressions provided their type is proper.